David Brewster here again with another episode of Scales and Tales, and this is Soloing by the Numbers. And I've had a number of viewers request, more insight and lessons, focused on, playing over chords and chord scale relationships and targeting, certain notes and using certain modes and different tonalities over chords and chord progressions. And this is very confusing. I've had a lot of students over the years, that came to me and kind of needed help, understanding how all this is connected. So this entire lesson is going to revolve around the key of A, and it'd kind of be up to you to move this and flesh this out in other keys, or it might be up to me if I get enough requests. I could make a part 2 of this and dive even deeper. But we're going to look at it and base it all around the same key. That way you can clearly see the differences and the modifications and little twists that we're going to add as we move along. So we're going to start with some pretty basic information, and then by the end, we're going to move, through so many different modes and sounds. You're definitely going to have your hands dirty, at least understanding some of this. And this is going to revolve around minor keys, minor scales, and minor modes. And no offense to major keys, major modes, and, some of the more happy sounds found in music. But I really am a big fan of minor keys and just these darker, kind of sadder sounds in music. But you can definitely flip this to major keys too. Okay, to get started, we're going to begin with the chromatic scale and kind of attack that head on. And in case you're not familiar with what the chromatic scale is, or maybe you're looking for some different ways of playing it or using it, since we're in the key of A, and I'm declaring this entire lesson in the key of A, you could definitely play it like this. It's everything in the kitchen sink, from A to the A an octave higher. So that's everything, right? And we could definitely play it that way, up and down a single string. But to make it a little bit more usable and where you could actually maybe see this a little bit clearer, let's put it, in a position across the strings like this. Same scale, it's actually a 2-octave version, but the same thing. Now, for a lot of guitarists and musicians, they don't really know what to do with the chromatic scale. They think of it as an exercise or an easy way to make carnival music, or, play Flight of the Bumblebee or Flight of the Wounded Bumblebee or something like that. But it really is useful to kind of help you understand some of these things that we're going to be looking at in this lesson, and many other things in music too. So here's an image with the chromatic scale kind of broken down, and you can see I've numbered the notes off 1 through 12. And then below that, I also relate those individual notes in an interbolic way, related to intervals. Minor second, major second, minor third, major third, and so on. So check this out. Now to move things into a minor tonality or minor key, let's take the chromatic scale, and then we're going to subtract the 5 notes we need for the minor pentatonic. So I'm going to start with minor pentatonic, and then we're going to start moving into modes and some other scales too. But, minor pentatonic only has 5 notes. So here's an image with a comparison between chromatic and minor pentatonic in the key of A. Okay, now let's locate the A minor pentatonic scale in that same basic neighborhood where we had the A chromatic scale up here. And of course that's going to be, position 4 of the A minor pentatonic scale, like this. Going to be kind of our base of operations, throughout this entire lesson. We're going to kind of stick right here. But to find a chord that's going to hit, that scale or react to that scale in a good way, of course you could take, a minor 7th chord. There's A minor 7 right there. There's a bunch of ways to play A minor 7. But that one right there, you can see there's A, C, G, and E with the high E open. So I am using the TC Electronic Ditto Looper to kind of loop, some of this. And that chord with the scale would look and sound like this. It matches perfectly. Now we can actually find a chord that has all 5 notes from that minor pentatonic scale, and we can actually find a version of that right here. So that's it's going to be an A minor 11, and that has everything that's in the minor pentatonic scale. There's A, there's C, there's E, G, and D up on the high E string there. So that perfectly matches A minor pentatonic, you know, note for note. As far as targeting over that A minor, you know, 11 chord that we just looked at, you know, any of those notes, it's almost like a big marquee or a, you know, illuminated billboard. And whenever you hit, you know, a certain chord and progression, certain notes and tonalities within that chord, it's almost like it lights up, you know, certain parts of that marquee. So, you know, with this A minor 11 chord we had, you know, every note in that minor pentatonic scale is in that chord, so you can definitely target the root. You know, that's kind of obvious. You know, those root notes are very strong. You know, the minor third, the C's, you know, those are strong. The fifth, the E notes, and then also that fourth, the D. You know, since it's in that chord, you can kind of hear how that, you know, it kind of makes that D pop out. Okay, next up, we're going to basically convert that minor pentatonic scale into Aeolian. So minor pentatonic has 5 notes, Aeolian has 7. And you can think of this, you know, a couple different ways. You could think of, you know, the minor pentatonic scale, and then you add the second and the flat 6, and it converts it to Aeolian. Or you can begin with the Aeolian, you know, scale or mode, and subtract the second and flat 6, and then that reverts it or converts it into minor pentatonic. So here's an image, you know, kind of showing what I'm talking about. Once we convert minor pentatonic into Aeolian, you can still recycle those same targeted, you know, notes we were looking at a minute ago. You know, the root, the flat third, the fifth, and the flat 7th, and we can continue to target that 4th, you know, that D note too. But let's target a different, let's add another, you know, scale tone to the chord we're looking at. So I'm going to target this F note, you know, in the scale. You know, no offense to that 9th, you know, the B, but let's play with this. And that's an A minor flat 13, and that F is right there on the B string. And by playing that chord and then playing Aeolian on top of it, like I said, you can still target, you know, the root, the flat third, the fifth, and the flat 7, but then playing over that A minor flat 13, you also want to target that F note, you know, the flat 13, and that would be something like this. You can hear how that F is kind of accepted, you know, with that chord. Next, we're going to change Aeolian into Dorian, you know, one of the modes from the major scale, and it's a minor, you know, tonality mode. And there's only one note different between Aeolian and Dorian, and that's the 6th. So in Aeolian, we had F natural, you know, that flat 6 or flat 13. And then in Dorian, we're going to raise that a half step, so F sharp, or just a regular 6th or major 6th. So here's an image, you know, kind of showing you the comparison between Aeolian and Dorian. As far as finding a chord, you know, that matches Dorian, we're going to look for something with a 6. So let's play an A minor 6, and we're actually going to recycle this, you know, A minor flat 13 we had a second ago. Let's just take that F and move it up a half step to F sharp, and bam, there's A minor 6. You know, really cool sound. That's going to change, you know, the way we're approaching the scale. So now we're going to be playing Dorian like this. And just like with Aeolian, now that F sharp is going to kind of stand out or jump out. And that would be something like this. convert Aeolian into Phrygian, and there's only one note between Aeolian and Phrygian that's different, and that's the second. And in Aeolian we had a B natural, and for Phrygian we're going to lower that a half step and play B flat. So here's an image kind of showing this comparison, and you can probably see like the process that we're kind of following here. We're using the Aeolian scale and kind of modifying the notes to find these different modes. As far as finding Phrygian, on the fretboard, let's find it, in that same area or territory we were kind of playing with. And now we're just going to be, changing B to B flat, like this. That B flat, kind of hiding in there. And there's a ton of chords, we could use that would match that tonality. But let's play with this. That's an A minor 7 flat 9. And the flat 9 is that B flat right there on the B string. And then that, scale played against the chord would match up like this. Now the process we've been using, kind of locating and converting and modifying Aeolian into these different major scale modes, even though they're from the minor scale family, but we could do this even outside of that limitation. So let's convert Aeolian to harmonic minor, the ever popular harmonic minor scale, which has appeared a lot on this channel. But here's an image showing the conversion from Aeolian to harmonic minor, and once again there's only one note different, and that's the 7th. So Aeolian has a flat 7, harmonic minor has a major 7 or raised 7. Converting the scale in this territory we've been targeting into harmonic minor, that would look like this. Very popular sound for sure. And there's other, many chords we could use that would kind of match that tonality. But let's play with this, and this is going to be an A minor major 7. Hear that G sharp right there in the chord, and there's two of them technically, and then that chord with a harmonic minor played over it, would sound like this, and it fits perfectly. This episode of Scales and Tales, and we really just kind of scratched the surface and put your toe in this big ocean of information. But understanding this is going to relate to major scale modes and major scales and major tonality chords and diminished and augmented and all sorts of stuff. So you can definitely twist this into other scales, melodic minor, Hungarian minor, or whatever. But the important thing is you're understanding how chords and scales really do kind of interact and lock together. And if you play the wrong mode over the wrong chord, it's going to sound horrible. If you played Aeolian over that, minor major 7 chord, that's not going to fit. It's going to clash, and it stands out. Almost like playing, a major scale over a minor chord or vice versa. And you can get away with that in blues and stuff, but you have to know what you're doing. But if you really do kind of mix the wrong thing with the, the wrong element of the wrong chord, it's really obvious. It's like, ooh, that doesn't sound good. But when it does match, whether it's a static chord or part of a progression or whatever, it sounds like music. It's like, hey, wow, that sounds great, because everything matches, or at least, it reacts and interacts in a very pleasing way. Now, some people do like that dissonant kind of off sound, but you really have to know what you're doing to play outside. Some people think, oh, I'll just play a bunch of wrong notes and play a chromatic scale and I'll be playing outside. And it's like, no, you have to understand how to play inside before you really understand how to play outside. Hopefully you got something from this, and please leave some feedback and comments and subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.